All right, thanks for tuning in to Jets FM on AOFN for this Tuesday, the 12th of November, 2019. Jets FM is brought to you by ourlads.com, providing the best New York Jets depth charts in the business. And the Jets coming up. Actually, we haven't spoken since the Dolphin loss, Jan, so we really had the panic that set in after the Dolphin loss. Even though, a couple of weeks ago before the Dolphin game, it's like we already told everybody we weren't going to be on the air for a few weeks. And it wasn't. I don't understand what's wrong with these people. It's like they all got like. It was almost like they were shocked that they lost to the Dolphins. What was shocking about it? This isn't a good team right now. They don't field a good team, so I don't know what they were all shocked about. And then of course you got the typical during every coaching regime for the Jets, you have some bozo flying his plane about firing the coach. So Jamal Adams, I'm glad that fiasco seems to be over with a great performance on Sunday, and here we are.
Okay, well, I think we both discussed it a little bit amongst ourselves. The Dolphin loss was an ugly loss. They didn't play particularly well. They let Ryan Fitzpatrick go up and down the field. Sam Darnold didn't play well. The whole team didn't play well. So let's not have revisionist history that everything is all copacetic and wonderful and happy, happy, joy, joy. They lost to a Dolphins team they probably should have beat. It is not a good team right now.
Here.
Questions in terms of the coach, and I think there have been valid questions on the coach. And we also know that the talent level on the team is very questionable right now, and we need lots and lots and lots of help. So for people to be upset after the Dolphin loss, I don't blame them because I was upset as well, especially seeing how poorly they played.
I didn't. What did you say? What's revisionist history?
Oh, that all's well and all's okay now.
Who said that?
No, it's not. It's not.
Wait,
it's
all is okay when?
They beat a bad Giants team.
Oh, you mean the last couple of days?
Yeah.
Who says everything's all right?
There are people that think everything. Oh, we're gonna run. Look, I'm happy Sam Darnold is talking playoffs, but I'm recapturing Jim Mara in my head right now when his playoff ring.
It's whatever. Sam Darnold's supposed to say that, so who cares?
They won a game that they did much better in. Jamal Adams was an absolute monster in the game. There offensively, there were signs, although we'll talk as we go along. More and more injuries, and the lack of depth is going to come out and be very evident. And one of the injuries is one, given the time frame in which that injury originally occurred, is a bit concerning as well in terms of the treatment. So nice to get a win. Although I will say that Greg, I will say,
sure didn't sound like it.
Me, goes, you guys didn't do a podcast last week. I missed it. So somebody is listening. I know there are people out there listening, and somebody asked me, how come we didn't do a podcast?
Well, then they weren't listening the week before because we told them.
We're not close enough.
Yeah.
Not close enough.
And it's not going to continue. So unless they go out and win maybe two, I know the schedule stinks, but unless this team plays better, they're still not going to win 3 out of the next 4, even though if they had a team that we knew that they should have had with all healthy roster, they would easily win 3 of these next 4, if not all 4, but this is just not the team. So they'll probably win a game or 2, and they'll probably lose a game or 2 because that's how bad they are, because these teams that they're playing, they really shouldn't lose, but they lost to the Dolphins, so anything's possible. Of course, the Raiders are a much better team than the Jets, so they'll lose that game. But, yeah, I don't anybody that outside of Sam Darnold that thinks everything's rosy after the Jet win, I don't know who they are, but I'm not going to talk negative after a Jet win because we're not going to talk positive or negative after wins or losses anyway, which is the whole reason why we're not doing shows every week, because it's not about wins or losses anymore. It's about developing this team moving forward to next year, which is why I'm not doing shows every week, because we've got, 8 more months? Is that what we have? 9 more months till week 1 of 2020? So,
sounds about right.
Yeah, so I've got more than enough time to talk about the future of the Jets, and we can kind of be patient with it. But what I did want to talk, look, a couple things. First of all, and I'm not trying to say he's the MVP of the team because he's not, but the injuries are so important. And here's just one example that I found very interesting. When the Jets came. Because you look at the first game of the season when Darnold had symptoms of mono, and things didn't go all that well. So really, we weren't really sure if he was playing 100%. So it wasn't until he came back to the first game, the Dallas game, and first half of that game, everything's going great, and we're going, wow. All of a sudden, everything's going great. Then second half of that game, it's like everything came back again. Team not good, and then team not good for a few more weeks, and then all of a sudden, the team started moving the ball a little bit against the Giants again. Do you know the one common denominator? The one common denominator of the first half of the Cowboy game and the entire Giant game?
Nope, but I know you're going to tell me.
Kelvin Beachum. That's the common denominator. Okay. And you put a left tackle out there, an average left tackle out there, and you put your rookie to right tackle where he belongs, and your offensive line all of a sudden goes from pathetically bad to poor.
Just bad?
Yeah, just bad.
Just bad, I guess.
So, but it shows you the difference just one guy on the offensive line can do for the offense. And to Sam Darnold, again, they're still bad, but it just shows you what would happen. Like, I'm watching the game last night, and I'm watching Garoppolo, and I'm saying to myself, if Garoppolo was on the Jets, he would look worse than Sam Darnold because he's got all day to throw the freaking football there, and he still can't hit anybody straight. So there are tons of quarterbacks I'm watching out there this week that get, like Dak Prescott, all day long to throw the ball. Sam Darnold hasn't had that luxury, which is why it's very hard to critique him from week to week.
Well, as you know, I am also a big Niners fan because of Montana and Notre Dame. And I was watching that game last night, and Jimmy Garoppolo was, in my opinion, the main reason why San Francisco lost that game last night.
Absolutely.
He was horrific.
Yeah.
Horrific, in my opinion. Now, the officials' mark in overtime on that third down play was also pretty horrific because the review seemed to show fairly clearly that he got a first down, and the official on the top of the screen was marking it as a first down until the official on the bottom of the screen, who had the worst angle, moved it back 1.5 feet. So Garoppolo was horrible yesterday. But as you said, the Jets took advantage of opportunities. Robbie Anderson didn't do a whole heck of a lot.
Nope.
You talked about injuries. We lost Chris Herndon, which this is proving to be an waste year for him, which is horrible because I really thought off of last year, and I think so did you, that Herndon would really take a major step forward, and his absence is big. Now, Ryan Griffith has actually played fairly well at times in his stead, and the Jets have to hope that. The nice part was, as you and I have talked about, Wesco getting opportunities.
Yeah.
He was used on a short yardage situation and barreled forward for a first down. Used in another short yardage first situation, made a catch to get another first down. So I'm kind of looking forward a little bit to an increased usage out of Wesco.
That's all these games are about. Trying to find out if these guys can improve from week to week.
And we talked about injuries. Brian Winters is dealing basically with a dislocated shoulder. Something that occurred in preseason that he played with that wasn't reported, and given what happened with
but that happens all the time. Players play with injuries
all the time.
But
in terms of the treatment and the way it was handled, you have to wonder.
I don't wonder, no.
Okay, you and I are different.
Okay, that's because you live in New York.
You don't? That's
fine.
Because
you live in New York and you got to hear it. So I don't have to hear the nonsense.
I can make decisions on my own without hearing things, right? So
all right. So the Jets doctors then now we've never heard anything from the Jets doctors in 50 years, and all of a sudden, they haven't had a change in doctors. It's the same guys. Now all of a sudden they all suck.
You used the term "they all suck." I never said that. You did. I'm just saying there is reasons for questions at times. Is all I am saying.
I think until this assembly thing is done, and you know what? I guarantee you we're not going to ever hear the end of it. All we're going to hear is behind closed doors something got settled. That's it. We're never going to hear it. I know it.
I'm sure we will.
And
I'm sure we will.
If something does happen again and again and again, trust me, the union will get involved, and then we'll start to know about it. But until the union gets involved, I mean, we got enough problems.
No. The reason why I'm also pointing out is we talked about injuries, right? You talked about the importance of getting Beachum back and his ability to play left tackle, move somebody else to right tackle.
And that's going to be another loss, sure, yeah.
So one step forward and one step back.
Absolutely.
Now we've lost another offensive lineman that we could ill afford to lose.
Well, again, that's why I'm not really too concerned about wins and losses. But yeah, the point is that everybody does need to realize that if all of a sudden we're getting massive pressure in the next couple of weeks, which we probably will this week, because Washington's the one thing they do have is a pretty good defensive line. That's their strength. And so that's going to cause some problems. You're going to move Compton in. Don't really care if Harrison, look, just play Harrison. I would just let Khalil go, to tell you the truth. Just let him go. Maybe he'll get picked up by a playoff team and he could, go for a ring or something. But Harrison should play the rest of the year. We'll find out whether or not he's capable. But yeah, it's not good because not that Winters isn't anything great, but he's the best of our weak guards. And that's still an issue because Alex Lewis is not a very good football player.
To me, also, there's I wouldn't say a wicked sense, but an interesting sense of irony. I went back and looked at the draft a couple of years ago when they drafted Leonard Williams, and who, lo and behold, went one pick before Leonard Williams?
Scherf?
You got it.
Yeah.
How nice would it be to have him on the offensive line right now?
Yeah, well, look, there's a lot the Jets need to have as far as the offensive line is concerned.
It's just interesting that you're playing the Redskins now, who ended up slightly below you or in the standings, and ended up getting the guy who would be a huge addition for the Jets, given one of the material needs that we've talked about that this team has.
And you know what? I don't know if Winters is a guy you bring back. I think the only way you bring a guy like Winters back is if you've got to make two outstanding upgrades on the offensive line, and then he'll be serviceable. But the Jets are going to have to either make three solid, above average additions to the offensive line, and right guard would be one of them. Or they make two really good additions, and Winters maybe looks that much better because he's now aligned next to better players. Because he's okay. I mean, he's not the defining guy on the roster that we can win or lose with. And I feel the same way with Beachum, to be honest with you. But at some point they got to say, okay. And in my opinion, I would actually be okay if they brought Beachum back, if they feel Udoka can start next year, and then they just get 3 interior linemen, or at least 2. But that's really where a lot of the pressure comes nowadays anyway in the NFL. You got to make sure that Sam Darnold can step up in the pocket, and something he hasn't been able to do most of the season. Another thing that I wanted to bring up regarding the Adam Gase fire, whether he should be fired is nonsense. Couple things. And I always think this is a good way to kind of remind everybody where other coaches are. And I don't want to bring up Bill Belichick because he's, Bill Belichick. So I figured let's bring up somebody that is actually having one of those seasons. And I'm glad that you just mentioned to me that you're a 49er fan. So here it is. Following a 38-0 loss to Carolina back in December 2015, the Atlanta Falcons dropped to 6-7. That's when a fire offensive coordinator Kyle Shanahan petition was released, and nearly 2,000 fans signed it. And in part, it read, Kyle Shanahan, the egotistical offensive coordinator of the Falcons, has overstayed his welcome as part of our beloved team. He has proven to have a track record of losing wherever he has gone. Mr. Blank, from the fans of your beloved Falcons, please get rid of Kyle Shanahan as our offensive coordinator and find someone that will let Matt Ryan unleash the potential he truly possesses as the leader of our team. Well, of course, we all know what happened the following season. Now, let's fast forward to last October, the 30th to be exact, following a loss to lowly Arizona to drop the 49ers to 1-7. Here's what some Niners fans were saying. Fire everyone, like right now. This is one of the worst years in Niners history, and everyone from the coaching to the front office is responsible for this. Go away, Shanahan and Lynch, and take Garoppolo with you. Not only were 49er fans upset at those three, but they couldn't stand Robert Saleh, defensive coordinator. That guy who couldn't outcoach a rookie offensive coordinator who had less than 1 week to change an offense. His defense once again choked away a sizable lead late in the game, and Shanahan started his head coaching career at 10-22 going into the season. We all know what the record is now. We all know what everybody thinks of Saleh. So the point is Adam Gase going to follow those footsteps? I have no idea. But the point is, you look at all the injuries and the quarterback problems that he had last year, Shanahan, with his team, And I can see the same thing here. You have to, not every coach will come out of it looking good, but you have to be patient from organization to organization, especially when a guy has at least a track record of going to the playoffs. He's had injury issues on his former team. People have talked highly of him. Those guys deserve a little bit of a shot when you have an injury-plagued season. We can only hope as Jet fans a healthy team next year means we will be a lot better and maybe have the type of year that the Niners are having this year. But bottom line is fans just have to be patient. I'm sick and tired of this social media time that we live in, that from week to week, this guy's great, that guy is terrible, this guy should be fired. It's just ridiculous. Just chill out. It's good. I know everybody wants to blame somebody, but he's going to be here till next year. And then next year, if everybody's healthy, one way or another, we're going to find out whether or not he's our coach. But I just think it's important to give examples from time to time to show people that sometimes you can go overboard.
So a couple things. So knee-jerk reactions have been around way longer than social media, as you well know. B, knee-jerk reactions are not always incorrect.
Yeah, but we never used to hear fire a coach after 6 weeks. I never heard that before. Coaches used to get 3 years, 4 years, 5 years.
I think is the lack of some kind of tangible progress. That the guy who was brought in, who was a quote-unquote quarterback whisperer, was not aiding our quarterback in terms of taking next steps forward. Part of that may have been due to injuries, and a lot of it may have been due to injuries and the lack of talent around him. But you saw regression as opposed to progression, and that was a major concern given one of the reasons why Gase got the job. And that's why people were up in arms, is not seeing.
So you think Adam Gase should be fired?
Oh, what?
So you think he should be fired?
I didn't say he should
So
be
why
fired.
are you giving? So why are you offering an excuse for them?
I said the lack of progress was concerning them.
I'm not saying it's not. So don't stick up for them.
People are allowed to have their opinions. You may disagree with it.
Of course, they can have their opinions, as asinine as they are. But you're making it seem like, well, their opinions are justified.
No, wait. You just agreed with me that you were concerned that there was a lack of progress.
There's a difference between that and saying the guy should be fired. I'm gonna pay for a plane to say fire the coach. It's a big difference.
Well, look, did you disagree with Rich Kotite being fired?
Rich Kotite?
Wait, I'm asking you a question.
That was like 30 years ago. I don't even know where I was on the planet when Rich Kotite
was a horrific.
He
coach,
was.
Right?
He was
That's
the worst coach in the
part of
history of the program. He was terrible.
The guy who I majorly disagreed with firing was Eric Mangini.
I 100% agree with you. I think if the Jets would have kept Mangini and Brett Favre, we could have actually been a much better team the next year.
And if Favre had actually sat a week when he was hurt and not played through
I agree.
The Jets would have made the playoffs that year.
Agree. I agree with you on that. I don't think Mangini should have been fired either. And when Brett Favre went to Minnesota the next year and went to the NFC Championship game, I'm sitting, it's like, of course. We left, of course. The 1 year that we get Favre, we make him look like trash.
No, he didn't. Wait. He didn't look like trash. He looked perfectly fine.
I know, but he got the injury. Yeah, he did get the injury.
And he
sure.
looked good,
yeah.
and then he was hurt and needed to sit.
Sure.
And because of the streak, he didn't sit, and he played through an injury that he never should have played through, and the team was nowhere near the same down the stretch.
And look, but that's not, to me, I would say that's not a fireable offense to Mangini, but that was his fault.
Mangini got fired because they lost 5 of the last 6,
sure.
I think.
And that was getting a little overboard. I agree with you. I don't think you should have been fired either. But anyway, look, here's a good comparison. Take a look at what's going on with Cleveland, okay? Cleveland, when you watch them play, you watch how awful the decisions Freddie Kitchens makes every week. And where is their excuse? They don't have one. They've got a quarterback. They've got everybody healthy. There's not one excuse for Cleveland to look that bad. And everybody knows Freddie Kitchens should be fired anyway. I'm not trying to say he shouldn't, or nobody's saying he shouldn't. But sometimes we have to compare the situations. And when you see the ravageness of injuries, and especially a quarterback that our rookie head coaches had to deal with, compared to what's going on in Cleveland, That guy's, I mean, please. So sometimes you have to say, okay, it could be a lot worse because it could. Just imagine if Freddie Kitchens was our head coach. Then things would be really bad because I can't even believe he's still the head coach of that team.
So we're equating one potentially bad decision with another and evaluating the two against each other as to why we should be happy. Is that where you're going with it?
Just no, so I make sure I'm going with it is you need to have an example of, okay, here's our team. Here's Adam Gase, rookie head coach. Here's Cleveland rookie head coach. Okay, if Gase was coaching Cleveland and he was on their team and they were in the same situation, I would be fire Adam Gase. I would be, you know what? He's done. Just like I'm saying with Kitchens. I wouldn't be sitting here defending Adam Gase. How can you? It's indefensible what's going on with Kitchens right now with that team. Because everybody's healthy, too. Not just because they're all healthy, because of his play calling, everything he's doing with that organization. Gase, when you compare that, I'm not seeing anything even close to it. I don't sit there and go, oh, my God, that is the absolute worst decision I've ever seen. Or, oh, I can't believe it. Remember in the beginning of the season when we were making predictions, the one thing I said, the caveat was they had to stay healthy. Not only did they lose one key player, they lost a ton of key players, which is the point is you can't judge this guy right now. I know it hurts. I know fans are that it's painful to watch this team play every week. So what do? You want to blame someone. It's just natural. And I got no problem if you want to blame Gase and say he's part of the problem. Just, to say he should be fired, those people, I'm sorry, but they don't know what they're talking about.
Okay.
All right. Vernon Hargreaves, should the Jets pick him up?
Is there a risk really of doing so,
Nope.
especially if you're going to get rid of Khalil?
No risk.
So why not?
Yeah, I agree. I'm not sure he's the answer.
Maybe resurrect the guy that at one point in time was viewed to have a tremendous amount of talent.
Yeah.
And we've seen enough instances where one guy's trash is another team's treasure, right? So
you never know.
Why not take the risk, especially with you need a backup, or you're in evaluation mode anyway. Khalil clearly hasn't panned out. Why not take the risk?
Hey, you never know. I mean, he's not. Chances are he can at least be serviceable. Chances are, of course. Plus, you don't have to wind up. I think there is again, the contract situation would be, I think he has a player option, but you could kind of work around that if you bring him in and maybe try to work him into your. But look, he's 5'10". I'm not even sure he's anything more than a nickel back anyway. Poole's done an okay job. I think he could win with Poole. What I'm looking forward to seeing, though, and I think you'd have to agree with me, that one of the things that was a real nice, pleasant thing to see was the play of Blasson Austin. He had a solid game. He's a tall, lanky corner. Of course, as all the injuries the Jets are having this year, it's like you got to keep your fingers crossed that nothing happens to him. But these are the stories that we have to follow this year, because if Blasson Austin can end up – and look, I don't care when Andre Roberts is healthy again. You play Blasson Austin in front of Andre Roberts. I do. Again, it's not Andre Roberts, Darryl Roberts. I do not want to see Blasson Austin sit the bench for Roberts.
I wholeheartedly agree. I think. Look, when he was drafted last year, we knew there was the injury risk and he would potentially miss the whole year. And it was one of those draft and stash kind of players.
Yep.
And you and I both thought of the pick was a nice pick, especially for the potential upside. What we saw this week, and again, long way to go. Sure. It was a nice first game, but you saw the talent level as to what made the Jets think that it was interesting to draft him. And one of those things that he should most certainly be in the lineup. He got 49 snaps last week. My opinion, he should be used similarly than the remainder of the season as he gains more strength. You know what Roberts is. You know what you get out of him. Even if you get Hargreaves and you can make room by stashing. Look, you're going to lose. You already know Winters is gone. You already know Herndon's gone. You can get rid of Khalil. Those are three spots. You can call up guys from injured reserves, call up guys from the practice squad, sign guys that are free agents, Hargreaves being one of them. Even if you sign him, go with Austin, see what you got out of him. It can't hurt to use him down the remainder of the season. See if he can build upon what he did in week one and see if he's a potential, not necessarily starter, but a building block or somebody who can be rotated on the defensive backfield in the next couple of seasons.
Well, like I mentioned, me, of course, being from the area, being a New Jersey guy, being a loyal Rutgers Homer fan, I followed Rutgers football, so I know how talented he is. And I said this in the offseason when we were talking about him, that he has as much talent as the McCourty brothers when they came out for Rutgers. That's how talented this kid is. And that's why he was drafted at all, considering his injury history the last couple of years. He's got a ton of talent. So I look at him as if he's a healthy professional, he's got number one potential. Definitely number two. Definitely starter. So if he can stay healthy the rest of the season, which should be awesome for us, all of a sudden we could look to next year and say we might have stolen ourselves one of our two starting cornerbacks for the 2020 season. And that's what, again, these next 8 weeks or so we're going to be about, are hoping that guys like Austin could step up, because most of the other young talent for this team is up at the defensive front. And I'm very happy to see Shepard come back off of suspension and play well. Very happy of what I've seen from Fudukasi the last several weeks. He's been stuffing the run big time. We've seen good plays from Phillips. We've seen some pass rushing from Jordan Willis. We know what we have from Quinnen Williams. So I'm very excited to see, hopefully, some continued growth from that young defensive line.
I mean, you touched on a couple things. So Fadukasi has been great. The line as a whole has been excellent in terms of stuffing the run. They didn't give Barkley much room at all. They haven't given a lot of teams a ton of room. The pass rush is still something as a work in progress, but nice to see what Jenkins did, though. I mean, part of it has to be discounted because the Giants' offensive line, especially when Solder went out, is also not particularly good, similar to what we've gone through. But there are signs of life. Greg Williams has done a good job, or a pretty good job, in terms of building a defense. Granted, more talent is needed, especially on the pass rushing side of the equation. But you like what you see from the run stuffing side of the equation, and you also like what you see, as you said. You mentioned, Austin. You saw him at Rutgers. I didn't follow him as much since I'm no longer living in Jersey. But all the reports when they drafted him was a guy who had, as you said, if not number one, clearly major rotational type of talent. Guy who missed 2 years because of knee injuries, was a risk worth taking. We've seen enough players that have come out of the 6th and 7th round that I think when the broadcast yesterday, I think it was one of the broadcasts over the weekend, mentioned that a team had 4 7th rounders and found contributing players with all 4 of those picks. So for everybody who poo-poos trading up and down in the draft, there is talent that can be found in the later rounds and talent that can be found as undrafted free agents. You just need to have a GM that can discover that.
Yeah,
and maybe McCagnon finally got one right late with drafting him, because we know that we've struggled in terms of the earlier picks. And if Austin can be somebody who's, if not a starter, but a guy who comes in as a backup and can play substantive snaps and provide depth to a position that's been weak the last couple of years, especially the signing of Johnson did not pan out at all. You and I talked about that. Jermaine Johnson clearly was a waste of money that we've used, unfortunately, in 2 years, and is probably going to get waived this offseason. You may now have a much cheaper option that's a much more productive option available that you got in the 6th round of the draft this past season.
Yeah, and look, just keep in mind, I have a high regards to, in my opinion, if Austin's healthy, he is going to be a starter, whether he's a 1 or a 2. I don't look at him as a guy that I think it's a worst case scenario that he's a rotation guy, but I think Jet fans should be excited about the possibility that if he's healthy, he's definitely got starter capability. I also am intrigued to find out whether if Demaryius Thomas plays well the rest of the season, is that a guy you kind of bring back as one of your rotational receivers?
Depends on the salary.
Oh yeah, it's got to be cheap.
Also the good part is look, you're likely going to have a substantive amount of turnover potentially back there. Right? We talked already.
That's right. That's for sure.
We pretty much know that we don't know if Nun was ever going to come back.
Yeah, you can't count on him.
That's up in the air, right?
Yep.
Robbie Anderson's a free agent.
He's gone.
Right now, there's a very strong likelihood that he won't be back. So having somebody that's played in the system, because we all presume that Gaze will be back, and knows the system. B is a veteran receiver that can help the younger guys, and C could be a 3rd, 4th, at least at a minimum 4th receiver, for a decent price, given the cap room the Jets may have, it's not the worst idea to bring him back just for those reasons alone.
Oh, and by the way, I will say this, and we'll be done with Gase. I will even tell you that if the Jets were to lose 3 out of the next 4 games, I will start to feel a lot more uneasy about them, because this schedule is so bad in the next 4 games that there's no way that they can lose more than 2 games, because there's no excuse unless Sam Darnold gets injured again. That's how bad the schedule is. Yeah, so I think that they're oh, by the way, before I let you go, the other thing let's keep in mind is it's great to see Joe Burrow coming out of nowhere and playing great, because nobody had him pegged for a top 5 draft pick when the season began. That's another player. You got Herbert, you got Burrow, you got Tua, you got 3 quarterbacks who could go 1, 2, 3 in the draft. We're not taking a quarterback, and you know who's sitting there from Ohio State. So, and it's good that, by the way, that he's probably suspended for 4 games, because maybe he won't get hurt or anything like that. But if the Jets end up, that's the bad thing about winning games, by the way. If we wind up winning some of these crappy games and screwing up our draft status, which, of course, with our luck, that's what'll happen, we could end up in a situation where we could get the best pass rusher in the draft.
It's quite possible, but you just said if we lose several of these games, you're going to be upset and maybe clamoring for Gase to get fired. On the other hand, we're talking about losing games to get a higher draft pick, so we can't have it both ways. And by the way, just as we talked, the Jets have signed B.J. Bello and Kyron Brown to the active roster. Winters and Herndon are both been placed on IR, ending their season.
B.J. who?
B.J. Bello.
B.J. Bello. What do I...
And Kyron Brown.
Well, good for Kyron Brown. We wanted to see him on the active roster, so that's good. So that's another guy that could be a rotational part of our secondary next year.
So Winters and Herndon to IR as we kind of expected.
Bello. It sounds like, I think did he play for the Cowboys? Bello. Where did he come from? Bello. Interesting. Okay. Because I don't even think he was on our practice squad. Bello. We must have picked him up from another practice squad, I guess. Does it say where he came from?
I'm taking a look to see. Bear with me a second.
But yeah, look, Kyron Brown's the big one, because you bring Kyron Brown in there, and everybody knows, if they've been listening to this show in the preseason, how much we talked about Kyron Brown as a potential free agent rookie steal. He was a very good player in the MAC. And it was going to take this type, that type of kid's going to take a couple of years. So if he can get in there and get some starting and get some experience, some rotational experience by the end of this season, maybe he's another corner along with Plasan Austin that becomes a part of our main group next year, and that's what we got to hope for.
Thursday said Bello signed October 30th and was released 8 days later. The Illinois State product spent time with the Packers practice squad earlier this year after he first signed with the Browns as an undrafted free agent. He had stints with the Cardinals last year on the practice squad, Eagles on the active roster, and Texans as a final
Eagles. Cut. Okay. So maybe that's where Douglas knows him from. Was that last year he was with the Eagles?
2018 active roster.
Eagles. There you go. All right. And what position does he play? Linebacker?
Yeah.
Okay.
I believe so.
So no offensive lineman. All right. Interesting. Okay, So not sure when we're going to be back again, but we will return in the next couple of weeks, especially if there's some breaking news to discuss. So, Jan, appreciate it as always, and let's hope the Jets do not embarrass us with a loss against Dwayne Haskins, a quarterback, because I'm sorry, there ain't no excuse to lose this football game. Right?
No argument. No argument on that.
What's next week? Is it the Bengals next week?
I believe so, yeah.
All right, so no excuse for the next 2 weeks. That means we get Haskins.
No excuse for the schedule is very. I mean, they have the 4th easiest schedule, the Jets, the remainder of the season.
Haskins and Findlay, 2 rookie quarterbacks in back-to-back weeks. No excuses to lose 2 games. Matter of fact, they better win both of these games. See, if they're going to lose a game, it's going to be Oakland. And I don't want to lose to Ryan Fitzpatrick twice in the same season. So I'm saying 3-1 in the next 4. What do you say?
Would seem to be reasonable.
Okay. But they'll probably end up 2-2. All right. So that's going to wrap it up, Jan. We'll talk to you next week. Oh,
Sounds
no,
good.
not next week. We'll talk to you whenever.
Yep.
All
Agreed.
right, take care.